And we're live. We're live. It always takes it just a hot second before everything catches up. And there we go. I know it's working because I see Hank in the chat. Hank Garner is also one of our Dabble staff. He runs our podcast, Devri. So you actually got to meet him briefly behind the scenes the other day. When we were troubleshooting our tech, we could have used Hank again a few minutes ago.
Seriously, tech and me, we're just not friends.
No, it's okay though. So we'll chit chat for just a minute or two before we jump into introductions. We'll give everybody kind of a chance to get here, to roll in, to take their seats. I always feel like this is just like when I was teaching high school and you're waiting for the bell to ring, standing at the door.
Yes, exactly.
Ushering everyone in. So,
well, so can I be super unprofessional? And while you usher everyone in, I can run and use the restroom so I don't have to do it in the middle of my presentation.
Absolutely. You can.
And anyone who's already in here, the problem that the reason this is happening now is because it took us 30 minutes to troubleshoot the tech and get the screen up, which was not accounted for.
But we think we've done it, and it's going to go off without a hitch.
We've got it. All right, Abby, take it away.
Okay. So, hello, everyone. Hello, B and Hank and Meg and Emily and David. We have a bunch of our regulars here today, which is great. B is also, I feel like this is perfect to show. Oh, B types too fast. I picked the wrong one, BRB. Although I'm not sure what RRB means. BRB is be right back. RRB. I don't know what that is. If somebody knows what that is, will you put it in the chat for me? Because I need to be schooled. Do you know what RRB means?
What? Where? Huh?
Okay. BRB is be right back. Yeah. Oh, restroom break.
Oh, I apparently should know that one.
We learned it. So
I think I had a dream last night that like I had to run off when I was playing one of the videos and that I wasn't back in time and that Abby was panicking. It was like, where did she go?
I'll be like, abort, everyone. We've lost our captain. The ship has no one steering it.
Oh my goodness.
So, all right. Well, I know Doug usually gives everybody 5 minutes, but I tend to give 3, and we're right at the 3-minute mark. So I say, let's jump in. So hello, everyone. Welcome to this class on pacing with my friend, Devri Walls. I am so excited. I keep saying this in all our events this week. I'm like, you guys just wait until Devri comes and does this pacing class because it's flipping amazing. And I think about all the workshops that I have gone to over the years, both like in person at conferences or, webinars or things like that. And there are just a small handful of them that stick out in my brain and that I feel like I walked away from and was like, holy crap, that really gave me something like so useful and so good that like then I applied and I kept applying it. I think that's part of it. So no pressure, Devri, that I've been talking you up so big.
No pressure.
I am so excited to have you here to talk to us about pacing. And I mean, you know your stuff because you've got 8 books out. You can only find 4 right now. We'll just say, long story short, the other 4 will come back into the world again later, along with some potential new amazing stuff that we can't talk about.
I know, super secret projects under NDA. I can say nothing, so that's really cool. Yeah.
But also cool that you can say things like super secret project under NDAs.
Yeah.
So
it does make me feel a little cool. Like you should just say that when people are like, what are you up to? You can be like, oh, I'm under an NDA. Like immediately people are like, oh, okay.
I think I might just start saying that just because nobody knows, right?
awkward because then you're like, no, really, I can't say anything. Yeah, it's just a win-win situation.
But for our viewers here too, you write fantasy, which I think that's one of the things I asked when I came on board at Dabble. I said, what is the genre breakdown for our community? And I think fantasy is number one, romance was number two. I think science fiction might have been number three. And so anyway, fantasy author talking to probably a large portion of our audience listening right now are fantasy or spec fic of some sort, and so you're in very good company. Do you have anything else you want to say before we put your presentation up?
I think we should just rock and roll because we've got a good solid hour of material and I want to be able to answer questions at the end. So
all right,
we'll get going.
Let me tell everybody, if you have a question, put it in the chat. I'm just going to mark it so that when Devri gets to the end of her workshop, we'll address all the questions then. So, put it in the chat while you're thinking about it. I'll mark it and we'll make sure that we cover it at some point. So, all right, take it away.
All right. Okay, hello, everyone. I can't see anyone, but I'm going to trust that there are people there. So the class today is on pacing. And pacing is a term that writers use all of the time. It gets thrown around at conferences. It gets thrown around a lot in like our manuscripts, right? Like we might get a comment back from an editor that says the pacing is off. And the problem with this is that trying to describe pacing is a lot like trying to describe salt. And as a result, for many, many people, when you get the comment, your pacing is off, it's meaningless. It is unhelpful. And I was getting this question a lot. Like I would go to conferences and, be on panels or whatever. And people would stop me after and be like, this is what my editor's telling me. This is what my writing group's telling me. I don't understand what this means. And I got really sick of not being able to answer the question. Because again, how do you describe salt? And so I would be standing awkwardly in the hall, like it is like, I don't know what to tell you. And I got so tired of it that I was like, that's it. Like, I've got to figure out how to teach this. I've got to figure out how to explain this to people, which meant I then had to figure out how on earth to explain salt. Pacing was one of those things that I always just kind of got. And I think you see that a lot in the writing community. Like some people just get it. And I have always been able to feel it in my body. The other thing that I just kind of got as an author was dialogue, which coincidentally relies super heavily on pacing. Now, the reason that I understood these things was not because I was some brilliant savant, creative genius. I was a singer. I started taking voice lessons when I was 12. I started performing immediately at that point. I went to college on a vocal scholarship. I majored in theater. And so my entire life revolved around pacing, because in order to really touch people through song and on the stage, like it is all dependent on pacing and variation. But to take that understanding, which had kind of just grew as an innate feeling in my body, and like give it to someone else just felt impossible. So I started really paying attention. Like, where am I going to get this information? Like, where am I actually learning this from? And I, to my surprise, realized that I was not going to books for this. I was learning everything else through books. I was learning sentence structure. I was, paying attention to characterization and scene setting and all of these things. But I was learning my pacing from film. And I was a little surprised by this realization. And I had to sit for a minute and be like, okay, why? Like, I'm an author. I don't write screenplays. So why am I going to film? And the conclusion that I came to was our brains are doing less when we are watching film. So when we're reading a book, we're actually requiring a lot of our brain. And there are limits to how many things a human brain can multitask before everything else falls off the wagon. And that is just science. So when we're reading, we are taking letters and we're turning them into words. We're taking the words, we're turning them into sentences and paragraphs. And in addition to that, we are now creating the pictures in our mind. We are making up the vocal intonation of the characters. We are watching these people move. We're putting mountains in that. We're doing all of that in our head while also reading. And as a result, there just isn't room for really almost anything else. And this is why if anyone ever says like, you know, study this book to learn this, or study this thing, you know, to pay attention to this aspect, they will usually add the addition of like, make sure you've read the book for pleasure first. And that's why, because you're out, then you're not creating everything in the moment, so that you have a little more space in your brain. Well, if we're looking at film, all of it is done for you, right? You're not having to make up what the characters sound like because they're there. The scene setting's there, everything's there. So I'm going to teach this class today through movies. And in addition to that, what we're going to do is we're going to throw the term pacing out the window from here on out. And we're going to replace it with something that is much easier to recognize, and that is beats. I changed the term from pacing to beats because nobody has to be explained what a beat is. A beat is not like salt, even a little bit. A beat is something we all recognize. We understand it in music. We understand how it affects us when it speeds up and it slows down, all of those things, and how it is in our body when we hear those variations. Oh, there we go. Sorry. So this little slide thing that I have up here is, oh, there we go, giving me a slight bit of trouble, but hopefully everything will load here. Cool, not loading. Why would it load? Okay, so what this is supposed to say is, at its core, pacing is just a combination of beats that creates an emotional reaction within the reader while also serving to keep the reader both invested in the story and entertained. Let's see. Guys, I'm going to need these things to work. So none of the, oh, there's that one. Oh, wait, what is happening? Okay, that's that. Guys, I apologize. I've never had to work with this in this setup before, so I don't know what it's doing. Okay, so here we go again. I'm going to read it one more time. At its core, pacing is just a combination of beats that creates an emotional reaction within the reader while also serving to keep the reader both invested in the story and entertained. So the first clip we're going to start with is, it's a lot. And it's definitely baptism by fire or drowning you with a fire hose. And that is a clip from Mad Max. Now, every single time I go to present this, I go through my presentation, I review everything, see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. And every time I think, do I really want to start with Mad Max? Like, this clip is so much. But it is a fabulous introduction to mixing beats, to how to use the same tools to create different beats, and to create different emotional reactions with your audience. So every time I decide to keep it, and I just kind of give the caveat to you guys, what I want you to watch for is see if you can feel the beat of the scene changing. If you see that, see if you can identify what the beat actually was or what caused it, and what the purpose of that beat is in relation to the storytelling. Now, if you are completely overwhelmed and are like, I don't even know, just don't worry about it. Like, just sit back, take in the clip, and we're going to break it down piece by piece. So you don't need to worry about it. Another apology really quick. Normally, these videos are queued up a little closer to where I would have wanted it to start for you to pay attention to. And because of how this is working, it's not allowing me access to fast forward through this. So apologies in advance. We're just going to have a slight more time watching these videos.
My world is fire and blood. It's the oil, stupid. Oil wars. Once, I was a cop, a road warrior searching for a righteous cause.
The terminal freak-out point. Mankind has gone rogue, terrorizing itself. Thermonuclear experiment.
The earth is out.
Our bones are poisoned.
We have become half-life.
As the world fell, each of us in our own way was broken. It was hard to know who was more crazy. Me or everyone else.
Hello? Where are you? Where are you, Max?
Here they come again, worming their way into the black matter of my brain.
Help us, Max. You promised to help us.
I tell myself, they cannot touch me. They are long dead. I am the one who runs from both the living and the dead, hunted by scavengers, haunted by those I could not protect. So I exist in this wasteland. A man reduced to a single instinct. Survive.
Max, is that you? Where were you? Where were you, Max?
You let us die! You let us die!
You promised to help us.
Okay. Is everyone thoroughly confused? Okay, so I want to ask, and I can see, I finally found the chat area, so I can see you guys popping up over here. Does anyone want to drop any comments about some of the beats that they saw, anything that they noticed? While I'm giving a couple of seconds to see if anything pops up, I wanted to say how delighted I was by Emily Blue's comment, because she said, so a novel is like a symphony. And I was like, yes, that. I realized, I don't remember when, but I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, so I compose music, but with words, because that is what I'm doing. Like I pay attention to the beats so heavily when I personally write. It's part of my own style. And that is what it is. It's basically I'm writing music. So that was very cool to see. All right. I don't see anything yet, so I'm going to go ahead and get started.
Is it like slow, fast, slow, fast? Like that's what I noticed about this. Like you'd have these real quiet moments where it's like your brain was still processing what had just happened and then bam.
Yeah. So you're definitely get that slowing down and speeding up. But what techniques did they use? So like, let's see. B has memories are slow, the anger speeds up, then the capture and escape. B definitely onto something here. And I'm really excited that you mentioned memories are slow because they actually use memories a couple different ways here. We're going to talk about it. And yep, it sped up from the lizard. It did, but there were variations after that. So let's look at this. So I've identified 5 important changes in the pacing or the beats in that particular clip. So the first really main beat that you have is the car roll. Now, they use car rolls in film a lot to slow down beats because they'll go into that slow-mo. One, it's very visually cool, right? But it also is just a really awesome mechanism to do that. Normally, though, they work with the car itself. So you'll see like the seatbelt tighten, right? And like the body's kind of coming around the seatbelt, the hair's in the air. You've got broken glass blowing around the car, right? As it's kind of rolling. And that's not what they did here. What they did is they used the memories to slow the beat during the car roll, right? So all of a sudden he started hearing things and seeing things. And the really beautiful thing about that is those are mechanisms that are really easily used as an author because we can get into people's heads, whereas the film struggles to do that as well. The second beat is when we get to the cave. So when we get to the cave, you can feel it starting to pick up. And it sounds kind of like the slightly increased beat of a metronome, okay? So all of the sudden, I don't know if you can hear my snapping. These are sad snaps. First beat is the child grabbing hair. And if you notice, this is what's so cool about this clip. The child is not grabbing hair in like a scooping up kind of way. He's grabbing hair on a beat. He's okay? Then the beat picks up a little faster and they use the scissors. So then we have the scissors snapping at a slightly faster. And then the tattoo gun ramps up. So we go faster, 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 faster. Now, what does the increase in beats serve to accomplish? Tension. It's creating tension. Your gut, your body feels like something is about to happen. Now, I'm going to guess that a lot, or at least some of you are thinking like, cool, like I see that, but like, what am I supposed to do with that, right? Unless we're doing a super pricey audio production, things like child grabbing, hair and scissors, like this is not helpful to me. So I'm going to, Jane said I stopped breathing almost. Exactly. That's exactly what they want you to do. So I'm going to show you how this translates into writing, maybe. Come on, be my friend. Oh, there we go. Okay. So one of the ways that we imitate this type of technique in writing is we use less words and we use fewer descriptors. So instead of saying the scissors shone brightly against the raging fire, glinting with every slice, we're going to say the scissors snicked, hair dropped to the ground. Okay. I was practicing this the last time I presented this, and my daughter was in the room, and she was like, "Mom, snicked is a really weird word." And first I Googled to make sure it was in fact a word because I worried for a second I had made it up. But it was a word. But the reason that I picked it is because snicked is a harsher word choice, right? So by using words that sound harsher to the ear, by shortening the sentence length, And by altering punctuation, we are able to imitate those very beats in our writing. And we will create those same feelings of tension in our readers. Let's see. Fast pacing requires less words, and that is just true, always. Anytime you start to add a bunch of descriptors into your writing, sorry, man, I've never tried to actually watch the live feed coming up as I'm trying to talk, and my little ADD brain is like, woo! Yes, it sounds like scissors closing fast. So anytime we use long, flowy word sentences, we are going to slow the pacing down. Anytime we start to use short, fast, we're going to pick the pacing up. You're going to cut extra descriptors. You're going to alter your punctuation, and you will see that a lot more coming in as we go through further examples. You'll see how I'm altering punctuation, and you're going to really watch your word choice, because some words sound harsher to the ear. So you want to match your word choice with the beats that you're trying to recreate. The third beat in the Mad Max scene is he's running down the tunnel. And if you pay attention, those beats are flying, right? It's working with the music too, right? We're da 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 da, and we're going, he's jumping over cars, and it's going and going and going and going. And if you were paying attention to your body, you would realize that the tension was so high that it was starting to get irritating. Like you didn't want to sit through that anymore. And filmmakers are brilliant at taking you right up to that line where your body is like, ugh, and then they slow the beats down to give you a break. This is exactly what we have to do in our novels. So when they're running, and that first break for the beat is when he jumps up and he grabs the bars, and the little girl's face appears, and she's like, Max, like everything, like, woo, slowed completely down. Right? So again, this is the second time where they've used memories or in the head thoughts to slow those pacing, like slow the pacing clear down to a near stop. That allows the viewer and your reader to relax. It allows them to breathe. And it's critical, because if you don't do that, like if you keep your pacing super fast for too long, what happens is that your reader doesn't like the book anymore. They don't know why. They can't articulate why they don't want to keep going, but that's what it is, right? They're so uncomfortable and the tension is so high that they're just like, I can't deal with this anymore. The fourth beat is the chase scene with memories. So this is cool. This is where it switches. They use the same technique for a different thing. So he drops from the bar, goes in the water, comes out, and again, that clip picks back up as he's running. But now they use the memories to keep the pace high. So we have those faces. Max, you left me. Max, where were you? All of those same things, making it go faster. So let's look at how this compares in writing. Hopefully this is large enough you can see both of these, because I'm going to have to get closer on my screen. These little glasses aren't even cutting it. All right. How to imitate altered beats within high tension sequences. So the slow is the bar example. So instead of seeing blue skies through the bars, Sarah's face appeared. Her large eyes looked to me, hopefully, the way they once had, before everything fell apart. Before I failed her, just like I failed all the others. She was dead, but her face was always there, seared into my memory. Her voice jammed deep in my eardrums, endlessly calling my name, Max, Max, Max. Why won't she just get out of my head? Now we have memories in the fast beat. Feet pounded through the tunnels, one after another they came. Max, Max, Max. Blood and gore and death, all dead. I ran through them. It made no difference. So as you can see, same technique, same memories, super slow beats, super fast beats. Okay. And now we're going to move on to our fifth beat. So the fifth beat in that Mad Max clip is the mountaintop view. So we've gone again through the fast beats with the memories. He bursts out of the door and everything comes to a complete and total stop. Everything ramps down and you see it all. You see the place below, you see the big rock thing, you see the green on top, you see the emblem, you see all of this. And if we were in a novel, right here is where you would get a fairly lengthy description of the scenery and probably some good backstory sitting in here. And then he would hear them coming and the speed would continue. Now, where they put this is actually a really great spot for a pro tip, and that is this. Just because the audience needs to know something does not mean they need to know it in chapter 1 or line 1. We always want to look for the appropriate place to add the info, taking into account the pacing as you do so. The scene setting in Mad Max here, where he burst out of the doors, was so much more effective because of where they placed it. We're invested now. We care now. Had they put that in the beginning, because if you remember in the beginning, he was just looking over sand dunes, right? So we get like, okay, it's desolate. Had they started with seeing the green and that, like, it wouldn't have clicked. We wouldn't have had any reason to pay attention. We'd have been like, yeah, okay. Same thing with novels. So hold on to all that stuff. I always ask, like, if I'm coaching someone, I always say, like, sure, I understand that your audience needs to know this, but do they need to know this right this second? And if the answer is no, hold it and then use that as a tool when we're looking to slow down these beats and to alter these sequences. All right. I know it's a lot. It's going to get easier as we go, I promise. So for the next clip, I'm going to introduce a concept that I've coined the microbeat. And that is, it's those times in life where time really does slow down. Tragedy is usually a big one where time really does slow for us as humans. It might be something as horrific as a car crash, or it might just be like one of those emotionally mortifying moments. like you're walking down the stairs in high school and you trip and your skirt's going over your head and your papers are going everywhere. And you have all of these thoughts that you should not have time for, but yet you do, right? Those are microbeats. They're the seconds that are broken down into those tiny, minute moments that you normally do not recognize. Microbeats are really powerful, and they must be used sparingly. The reason for this is microbeats cause physical emotions to happen to your readers, and they act as giant neon flashing arrows that say, hey, this is really important. This I need you to pay attention to. But if you're driving down the freeway and there's a big flashing arrow, what do? We slow down, we kind of look around, we pay attention, like, what should I know? But if there's a big flashing arrow every 10 feet, we ignore them, right? We're going to just be like, I don't know what that is. So it's the same thing when you're writing. We're going to watch this clip from Lord of the Rings. And this clip is going to go from a fast clip down to a microbeat. And in order to help you guys really see this for the first time, I'm going to beat it out with my cool wooden bowl and thing here. So hopefully you should be able to hear both the video and my tapping so that you can track where these beats are happening.
Run!
No!
Run for it. Go.
Hey! Hey, you! Over here! Hey! Over here! This way! It's working! I know it's working, huh?
All right. Okay, hopefully that bowl was not too annoying and was helpful. It's really interesting too, because hopefully you guys noticed that when I added the bowl, like the filmmakers are marking this out for you with music, if you know what you're looking for. But this clip moved from a steady beat to a fast, then into a microbeat. As far as microbeats, you can go ahead and drop in the chat what microbeats you saw, but there is a delay, so I'm just going to go. When we moved down really slow, you were able to see things like wide eyes, right? Beads of sweat, that obvious confusion that's going across the face of the players in the scene. And after we got through that battle part, and it slowed way down, it allowed us to see every single emotion that was crossing the face of all three players in that scene. The purpose of those microbeats was to highlight the heroic and selfless choices from all three players in that scene that changed the direction of the story. That scene was a huge flashing arrow that said, hey, this is super, super, super important. Had they not done that, had they not slowed it down, they just kept the battle scene going, and later Frodo was just discovered missing, it wouldn't have had near the emotional impact of this approach, because we didn't watch him make the decision. And in addition to that, in that scene, we were also able to gain a deep respect for two characters, Pippin and Merry, who up until now had really not been able to decide whether they were brave or not. Because they dropped this into a microbeat, they were able to move the plot forward and emotionally connect to the audience in the middle of a battle scene. If you try to do something like this without slowing the pacing down, it's going to feel weird, forced, and authentic. At worst case, you might accidentally write a comedic scene when that was not your intention at all. So you have to pay attention to stuff like that. All right, we're going to watch another scene from the Hurt Locker, because this is another example of microbeats just executed in a completely different way.
Crabgrass, St. Augustine, man. I'm a scholar on this shit. How about this? You sell it, I fertilize it. 25 meters, roger that. Sam Martin, put your shot 2 o'clock, dude, that's the phone.
Why is Elvis running?
Make him put it down! Put down the phone!
Come on, guys, talk to me.
Drop the phone! Drop your phone! Hey, burn him, Eldridge! Burn him! Put down the cell phone! Burn him! Get out of the way! Drop your phone! Put it down! Go get it! Burn him, Eldridge! I can't get a shot!
Okay, so this one used a totally different kind of microbeat. This one worked a lot with the surroundings. So we have the rocks, the rust, the way the suit was moving. All of these things are easily and beautifully adapted to writing. Now I'm going to add in another aspect of this. A tool that works hand in hand with pacing and beats is POV. I don't know what point of view you guys choose to write from. I'm sure there will be a variety. I personally work with third person. It's what I like to read, but it's what I like to write because it's one of the most powerful tools in my arsenal. Because I'm working in third person, I'm able to choose which one of these characters point of view is going to have the strongest beats to tell the story through. If you look at the two soldiers with the guns that are running and trying to get the guy with the cell phone, their beats would be, in my opinion, less interesting from a microbeat perspective than the guy who's defusing the bomb. When you have, hold on, I got way ahead of myself here. Okay, so because their experiences are super different, you can kind of put yourself in their head a little bit and just look out and be like, all right, what are they seeing? What are they feeling? And can I use that for a microbeat or can I not? The reality is for the guys that are running towards, probably isn't going to work great for a microbeat because the pacing has got to be up for that. But the guy with the bomb, that's totally different. He doesn't know what's going on, right? So now you have space for those like, wait, what is happening? You also have his view really restricted by that window that has to be in there. You also have his body restricted because you have that huge bulky suit. So immediately I know like, oh, I'm going to be able to really work with some stuff if I go from his POV. Okay, so I got an example here. I'm not claiming literary genius, guys. I just needed to write an example. So we'll put that as a preference. Oh my God, I'm starting to lose the ability to speak. Guys, we still have an hour. That's not good. My tongue needs to work. Okay. Seriously, this is so small on my screen. I can't see my own PowerPoint. Okay. Why is Eldridge running? Matt twisted, looking for Sanborn, but all he could see through the bomb helmet was a 3x6 rectangle. A sick feeling rose in his gut, and he yelled again into the radio. Why is Eldridge running? Nothing. He needed to move. Now. Guys, he broke into a sprint, but his suit bunched at his knees and elbows like folds of half-dried quicksand, while his protective boots slid in the gravel. Talk to me. Matt felt the bomb detonate a split second before he heard it. The ground rippled with the shockwave, and he leaned forward, desperate to gain every inch of distance between him and it. But it was too little, too late. The blast picked him up like a doll and threw him forward. As his body careened, sound evaporated until there was nothing left but the surreal hum of his own labored breathing, cocooning him as he wondered who they would send to tell his wife he was gone. Anyone but Wilson. That guy was an ass. Gravity grabbed hold of him, and his arms and legs flailed, looking for purchase and failing to find it. So if you look at this one, I've put in red a couple of things to pay attention to. So right here, we've got a slowing in beats, okay? Because we start to add in like emotions, physical feelings in the body. So we're starting to tilt down towards a microbeat. If you look here, we have short words, short paragraph breaks. So what are we doing? We're slowing the pacing, and we're making it sharp, okay? Now, when we get here, if I had more space than is available on this slide, I would have leaned further in here. Like talking about how the suit is doing and how much he's fighting against it. I would have definitely gone in more if I was writing a novel. But this is a general idea of what that looks like. And then the next one, oh, I realize I'm pointing on my pointer with my screen. Oh, no, there it is. I was going to say, you guys can't see it, but you can. This, as his body careen sound evaporated, this is where we've dropped into the microbeat. And we know this, one, because we've expanded, right? We have a lot of words here, so we are expanding how long this is taking to read. But we are thinking about things that we normally wouldn't be thinking about, right? Like he's flying through the air, and he's kind of calmly like, like I wonder who is going to tell my wife that I'm gone. And then this one is particularly microbeat-esque, right? Anyone but Wilson, that guy was an ass. When you are about to die, you're normally like, oh, please not that dude. That's, that would be terrible, right? So these are really good indicators that we are dropping down into a microbeat and you're drawing your reader's attention there. Okay, do we have, before we move on to the next scene, any comments or questions? I know we said we're going to do questions at the end, but is there anything that anyone must know before we move on? The next one's going to be a romantic scene example.
I've been watching the chat and I don't see any questions so far. So
perfect. Okay. So again, apologies. This is one. Oh, is it going to let me do it? why does it tease me? It acts like it's going to let me like fast forward this, and then it doesn't. So this has got about a minute of material before we get to where I actually wanted this to go. Can I?
Why do you fear the
Sorry.
You are a Isildur's heir, not a Isildur himself. You are not bound to his fate.
The same blood flows in my veins. The same weakness.
Your time will come. You will face the same evil, and you will defeat it.
Right here is where I want you to really start paying attention.
You said you'd bind yourself to me, forsaking the immortal life of your people.
And to that I hold. I would rather share one lifetime with you than face all the ages of this world alone. I choose a mortal life.
You cannot give me this.
It is mine to give to whom I will. Like my heart.
All right. If you're watching this, right, in a theater, at home, whatever, you will probably be leaning, like you're leaning into this. But what was it that made it so intense? Because it was way more than what she was saying. And what she was saying was pretty powerful. But the reason that it hit like it did is because that particular scene is loaded with microbeats. You have the gentle look up. You have the pause to brush the hair out of her face. You have fingers trailing down skin, right? If we're in a novel, we're going to talk about things like the softness of the skin, the feel of his beard, the look in his or her eyes. There were a couple parts that are my favorites, and that one is the moment where he remembers what she told him, because she says, do you remember what I said to you? And instead of answering the question, instead of nodding, he reaches out and he runs his hand down the pendant at her chest, right? Which is the answer to the question, but is so much more powerful than any of the other options. That also works so beautifully in a book. And in the book, you would be adding things because we're trying to slow that pacing down, right? We can add things about like the representation of the pendant, maybe a memory clip, maybe the feeling of how that previous moment felt. You have, again, when he's asking her a question, like she is looking up at him so slowly and the answer is there before she's saying anything. Those are things that we put in the book. Micro beats, particularly in this scene, made every single line delivered 10 times more powerful. And it will do the same for your novel. If you are writing romance, why does it not like half of these slides, guys? Okay, this slide says, oftentimes when a romantic scene is lacking the punch that you want, it's because you rushed it. The beats are moving too fast. So my advice when you're writing romantic scenes is see how small you can break that scene down. Just add like a bajillion microbeats and then go back through and edit all of the extras out so that it's not so heavy-handed. But it will be far better to do too many and then cut it back than to not do enough, because it will fall flat every single time. All right, so the next clip is teaching you how to use beats to rock your dialogue. Oh, well, thank you for loading now. Appreciate it. All right. So this is a clip from The Matrix. Again, we have the same problem that normally this starts about 30 seconds in or a minute in. Okay.
Let me give you one piece of advice. Be honest. He knows more than you can imagine.
At last. Welcome to you. As you no doubt have guessed, I am Morpheus.
It's an honor to meet you.
No, the honor is mine. Please, come, sit. I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. Ironically, this is not far from the truth. Do you believe in fate, Neo?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
I know exactly what you mean. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The Matrix.
Do you want to know what it is? The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room, you can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
All right, I think that's probably enough. This scene was a lot more subtle than some of the other beats that we have been looking at, but it teaches us two things. It teaches us how to break up dialogue with movement to make it feel more natural, and how to keep the beats very slow by doing this. So let's see, we're going to look at this example here. There we go. Okay, so quote, "You feel like you've gone down the rabbit hole." Morpheus rounded the wingback chair, running his hand across the top. Am I correct? By adding this in here, right, we slow down the feel of that scene in exactly the same way they were able to do that in the film. When dialogue alone is keeping you on the edge of your seat, pay attention. How is the character moving? What pauses have been added for emphasis? What is happening in the room or out the windows that are affecting the speech patterns? These are things we add in to make dialogue feel natural with the addition of beats. If you pay attention to how you even talk, right? Like if you're in the kitchen talking to someone, you are doing so with beats. Like you are waving a spatula around, right? You're like pausing for extra emphasis. Like all of these things is what makes dialogue feel more natural. People hammer a lot. Like I see this in classes, a lot of hammering word choice for characters. And that is very true, right? Like we can't have a 16-year-old talking like a 16th century English person. Like it does not work. But a lot of times it's skipped over like how much we need to pay attention to the movement and the beating of those scenes. Let's see. Okay. Quick note though. By learning pacing for movies, we are not copying the movie. Like, please don't do that. But we are just imitating the pacing of the movie, which is the pacing of real life, which is what we just talked about. Okay. And I have something here. There we go. Okay. So here is an example of how to write what we just saw. Neo could see his distorted face flashing in the silver surface of the pillbox. Round and round he went, falling down the rabbit hole of his mind of this very moment. The pillbox snapped to a stop. He glanced up only to see himself reflected again in Morpheus's dark glasses. Do you want to know? No, his voice cracked and he swallowed. Know what? Morpheus leaned forward, his lips wrapping around his words the way one would pull a cherry from a stem. What it is. Yes. Very well. Morpheus relaxed into the leather armchair, sliding the box into the pocket of his trench in the same movement. The matrix is everywhere. It's all around us, even in this very room. Now, when we look at the red, this first part is the microbeat. Okay, because we're watching that lighter going round and round and round and round. This, we're actually writing stop, but this is acting as a full stop, right? Then we come down here. Morpheus leaned forward, his lips wrapping around his words the way one would pull a cherry from a stem. This description, although long, keeps the beat slow by ensuring the dialogue is read slowly. So it's a little bit different application, same ending. And then this one, Morpheus relaxed in the leather armchair, sliding his lighter. This is where the pace returns back to normal speed, which signifies the passing of something important. We're allowing the reader, we're like, whoa, and now we're like, all right, now we're going to keep going. Okay. Breaking the dialogue up with a lot of movement is really also, along with POV, one of my favorite tools. It just makes it feel more natural. It makes people understand a little easier what you're trying to get. And I think this might be one of the reasons, the comment that I've always gotten on my writing, which should have tuned me into where I was going to learn a little faster, is like, oh my God, like your books read like a movie. And this is why, right? Because these are the type of techniques. And because we live in a generation that is so media heavy, especially for the upcoming people, they do really well with pacing that's imitating movement. So just as like a side note for appeal factor, that does help them. Okay, we're going to talk about comedic timing, which is a new addition to this presentation. All right, so this is a clip from Dungeons and Dragons. If you guys haven't seen this, by the way, this movie is delightfully fun. Oh, I queued that one way up.
Okay, Simon, how does this work? All right. Once the dead man is revived, you can ask him 5 questions, at which point he will die again, never to be re-revived.
Why 5 questions?
I don't know, that's just how it works.
Seems arbitrary.
Can we get on with this, please? Yes. Perlumon Tergatis. Maybe I'm not saying it right. Wasn't scared, really startled.
Here we go. Were you killed in the Battle of the Evermores?
Yes.
Great. I mean, not for you. Sorry for your loss. 4 more questions, right?
Yes.
No, that wasn't for you. Did that count as a question?
Yes.
Damn it. Only answer when I talk to you, okay?
Yes. Why did you say okay at the end of that? I didn't.
Fantastic. Where's the shovel?
This might have been one of my favorite movies that Chris Pine has been in, as a side note. Okay, so there are several things I want to talk about in this scene. So the first thing is how to explain something is weird without destroying your timing. This is a problem I see in fantasy authors in particular all the time. So in this particular scene, we have a coin that gives 5 questions, right? Well, that's kind of weird, right? Like, why 5 and why a coin and where did they find the coin? And people's brains start to do that. And so a lot of authors, especially fantasy authors, are like, well, I have to explain. And so they think they have to stop the scene and put in something like, well, the coin, was from a sorcerer and he came up with the spell, and it's because he had 5 kids and he took 1 drop of blood for each finger and put it on the top of each of their heads, and that's why it gets no. Don't do that. Like, it completely destroys the timing. But what they did here is perfect because they just addressed that it was weird. And you do the same exact thing in your books. Like, why 5 coins? Seems kind of arbitrary. I don't know. It just is. And as long as you've addressed the weird thing and said to the reader, like, yeah, it's weird, we're going to go with it, the readers are like, okay, I guess we're going to go with it. And you will see that everywhere. You will see it from, you look at George Martin, Game of Thrones, right? We have like a War of the Roses, very historical feel. And then it's like dragons. And you're like, what? And he's like, just go with it. And we're like, okay, I guess we're gonna go with that. And no one has a problem with it. Another example of this out of my Venator series, I had created this world with a shapeshifter. I love to work with them, but they are just like magic in that they need rules. Otherwise, why can't they do everything? And I had a shapeshifter that I had introduced pretty recently, so there was no time to explain his rules or at any point where it made sense to go in what he could or could not do, which was fine until we hit a very end point in the book. They're running from a dragon. They're running down this fire line. And all of a sudden, as the author, I'm like, well, crap. Why doesn't he just turn into a dragon? This is a big problem. But there was no other spot. I could not do it then without destroying the timing. So the way that I handled it was I had the character ask just exactly how they did it here in Dungeons and Dragons. Like, can't you just turn into a dragon? And I had my shapeshifter, while he's running, kind of throw his head back over his shoulder and be like, not a good idea. And that was all it needed. My editor was completely fine with it. So fine, in fact, that I still did not answer his questions in book 2 because it was kind of part of his secret, protecting of himself kind of thing. And it was not till she got to the end of book 2 that she was like, wait a second, what can he do? And I was like, I promise I have a plan to reveal this in book 3. Is that okay? And she's like, no, it'll be fine. But it was only fine because I had just, yeah, it's weird. We know. No, you're okay. Keep moving. Just address it. Okay. Comedic timing is called timing for a reason, because it is not just the words that make it funny. It's when and how the words are said, the movements, the breaks, the looks between the words. You can see that in really skilled comedians. like someone else could deliver the same line and it would be not even amusing, right? But because of their timing, it is hilarious. Now, this scene, I picked it because I was like, this is great. And then I started to try to replicate it, and it did not work at all. And I should have known that it wouldn't. But if anyone has any guesses as to why, you can go ahead and drop them. This particular scene relied on speed delivery and the play on who was being spoken to without actually saying who was being spoken to. And this is very problematic in a novel because we are required to use dialogue tags to keep the reader able to understand who is talking, right? Because this scene had 5 players in it, it just was not possible to remove all of the dialogue tags. So I'm going to show you the closest that I got, because sometimes it's good to see failures, right? And when things like don't work. And then I'm also going to tell you why I made certain choices to get it as close as I could to the scene that we saw. Okay. That's not it. What just happened? Where did I go? Oh no. I don't know how that just happened. Just a second. There we go. Okay. Edgin settled on the edge of the coffin, smiling. The skeleton stared back, unsmiling. He found it a tad rude that the skeleton hadn't smiled back, and until it occurred to him that it would be rather difficult to smile without any lips. Perhaps Skelly was smiling, and he just didn't realize it. Edgin decided to go with that. Good sir, he said brightly. Were you killed in the Battle of the Evermoors? Yes. Great. He motioned at the spider webs hanging between the skeleton's ribs like party decorations. I mean, not for you. Sorry for your loss. Holga groaned. Edgin grinned, glancing over to Simon. 4 more questions, right? Skelly croaked out another, yes. Damn it! Dorrit crossed her arms. Did that seriously count as a question? Yes. Oh, come on! Edgin jabbed a finger at Skelly. Only answer when we talk to you, okay? Yes. What? Simon sputtered. Why did you say okay at the end of that? Skelly turned to look at Simon, vertebrae cracking. I didn't. No, it was too late. The skeleton collapsed flat in his coffin. Wonderful. Edgin slapped his thighs and stood. Next. Okay, so if we look at this first red part here, because I couldn't imitate the Goofy style with the pacing, I had to lean in with other techniques. And in addition, the skeleton as like a dialogue tag was destroying my pacing, like just destroying it. It sounds like such a small thing, but it just was clunking it down and it was killing me. So I gave him a cute nickname that kind of matched the feel of it, kind of worked with the silliness of the scene to pick that up a little bit. I should have kept the original bad one so you could see what a difference it made. It doesn't make sense, but it made a huge difference. Okay, so this one, I had to tag here. I did not want to tag here. I wanted to keep this boom, 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 boom feeling. But this only works if it assumes, if the reader assumes it's Simon. Wait, that's not right. Or the reader assume. This only works if it's addressed to Simon. So I had to identify that this was Skelly. And then this one, we have more words. So this slowed the pacing down, but it was completely necessary in order to take out that 5th grade feel that was developing, where we had like the Simon said and Holga said and Simon said, right? So I sacrificed a tiny bit of pacing here to elevate the writing. And that's the game that you play with pacing. And this is why it takes me forever to edit things, because that's the tiny, silly stuff that I'm paying attention to, but it really shifts the overall feel of the scene. Okay. Okay, so we have a second Dungeons and Dragons clip here, and we are on like our last couple of points. Hold on. Okay. So, I'm not going to preface this for you. I was going to tell you what we're watching, but let's just see what you see.
would have lost my hand.
Dory! Dory!
There must be a way to get out of the arena.
Okay. So in this clip, they blended fast and slow beats. Hopefully you guys are starting to see them by now, like this, the picking up and the slowing down. They had quite a few breaks to kind of keep the tension a little bit lower as they were going through this. Like when the hologram appeared for the first time, it slowed way down and he runs his fingers through, right? In the book, it's that slow realization of like, oh my God, like I'm in trouble. But then when that giant cube drops down, they pull the pacing to a complete and total stop. And they do this not only to relieve the tension, but that was your big flashing arrow. That was your, what we're doing right here is really, really important. For those of you who have seen the movie, that scene is the setup for how they escape this thing. And every tiny detail that was in there is necessary because the way that they escape is so, it's rocking so close to unbelievability. It's running it right down the line where you risk your readers being like, no, like that doesn't work. That they had to pull it completely to a stop and let you see, this is what a human body looks like in here. This is what this bracelet looks like in here. This is how she was able to get her hand out. So that way, when they get you to the final moment, you will go with them. Okay. And these are things that we do in the book. I have absolutely decided to run something down the line in a fantasy novel and gone back and had to add a couple of things here or there in order to do this same effect. And doing those slow microbeat pacing allows you to pull the arrow, which pulls their attention, which means they are not going to miss it, so that when you get to the end, they will go with you. Now, if we were trying to write that scene exactly as it is, we were going to have to use third person omniscient, which is one of the least used forms ever. So that would be not a great translation. But let's say you want to write something like this and you're not writing in third person omniscient. It's really important that we keep ourselves flexible as authors. That we have, let's say we have a scene like this in our head, because some of us see pictures in our head because we are weird. So let's say we have this, but we can't make it work. Like it's just the timing isn't working. The beats are not working. It doesn't matter if you thought that John was going to the right in the maze. It doesn't matter. It's not working. So change it so that John's going to the left, or change it so that so-and-so is your main character so that you can use the beats and the timing to your advantage. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm more than happy to answer questions about that at the end. Okay, I think if a scene, guys, if you have a scene that's not working and you've already figured out like your plot's solid, everything is good, I can almost guarantee you that it's tied into your beats somehow. Either you're dropping information in the wrong spot, you're dropping too much information, you've used too many micro beats, you're not giving them a break, the tension is running too high, like it is related to beats somehow. So start looking for that. A piece of advice that I always give in this class is start paying attention to your body when you are taking in film or TV. If your shoulders are starting to tighten, if you're starting to lean forward, if your breath is getting shallow, these are big flags that are waving, that are saying, hey, like they are manipulating you here with beats. How are they doing it? And it's so amazing to be able to pause and be like, what is happening here? And be able to see like, oh, because they did this and they set that up with this and they set that up 5 minutes ago with this. And then you can start thinking like, how would I recreate that in a book? Like, what would that look like? What would that feel like? Okay, we are coming up to the end here. 1 second. Okay, stay flexible. We just did that. Oh, shoot. Okay. There we go. Okay. So you guys, plotting is making sure that we have all the necessary points of the story. Pacing is where we turn it into art. Pacing is where it develops all of the impact. And I want you guys to remember that you are a creator, you are not a writer. A writer puts words on a page, and you guys are doing so much more than that. What we as authors are doing is creating an emotional experience. We are building stories, people, and worlds from nothing, and that is art. Okay, so quick overview, and then I'm going to get to some questions here. So beats apply in every situation and every part of the book. Romance, battle scenes, breather scenes, inner battles, doesn't matter. Beats are there, I promise, always. Beats are necessary in every single genre. There is no escaping this. Beats should be studied so that you can see what you're aiming for. You cannot replicate what you cannot identify. The easiest place to identify it is film, in my opinion. But once you start to see it in film, it is easier and easier and easier to see it while you're reading as well. Overuse of beats becomes overwriting. There is too much of a good thing is a thing. All right. We cannot just go crazy because then the story is lost completely. Overuse of beats causes exhaustion and confusion. So confusion is an important point, really quick, just to address that. That's something I see a lot with my clients as well, is like they will draw on accident attention, like a big flashing arrow, to something that never comes back, ever. And the problem with this is that you've subconsciously told your reader, pay attention, this is important. So they're holding that. They'll keep reading. They're like, well, when's that coming back? When's that coming back? When's that coming back? And it distracts them so completely from the story that they get to the end, and again, they're completely dissatisfied because you never addressed the thing that they thought you were going to address, but that you were never planning on addressing. So we have to be really careful that we're shining those lights and putting those arrows to the right things. And finally, a lack of beats creates boredom and a lack of tension. It's those stories where you're just like, for the love, I don't care. Like, can we please get on with it? Okay. Anytime because you should be able to feel that as a writer. Like, you're like, oh, this is kind of tedious, right? Like, it's not okay. Stop, go back. Do you need to drop less backstory here? Do you need to interrupt that scene with another character poking his head in the door and saying something snarky? Like, pay attention to those things. And I think that is it. That is all we've got. Okay, I'm ready for a question.
All right. So far, I see 2 comments and a question that we can pull in. So the first comment is, I've added microbeat moments and afterwards during editing. It's easier to see the pacing later after writing the bulk. And I wanted to just stop and say that I just finished a short story, and some of the criticism was that the climax of the story happened too quickly. Mm-hmm. And I went back and looked, and I realized I was missing some of those micro beats, as you would say, where I wasn't slowing things down to point out why it was important. And so I added that in, and so I did the same thing. And I also remembered you talking about it. So bonus points to me from you. I will just add them myself. And then here's another one. I'm in the very early stages of looking at, not even really reading my first draft. And there's poetry in there. Listening to you, I think this might be my intuitive attempts at microbeats.
Oh, I love that. Totally. And again, the intuitiveness is so wonderful. Like, if you're one of those people that can kind of feel it and like just kind of understand it subconsciously, this type of thing is what happens. Like, all of a sudden you get flowy and you're not sure why. But that's exactly like, that this needs to slow down. So that's awesome, Emily.
Yeah. Okay. So here's our question. How do you translate this to the larger structure, i.e. chapter length, etc.?
Oh, I might get myself in trouble with this one.
Ooh, good.
Controversial things. So, I mean, first of all, as far as the overall structure, it is the same exact concept. You're just looking at it differently. So what, who said this? Was it Thelka? Is that how you say it? So Thelka, your early comment about like doing it afterwards, exactly right. But you're going to then go out right? And make sure that that overall pacing is getting that same go fast, slow down, go fast, slow down, go fast, slow down, so that we don't keep that tension running high for too many chapters. Like if you have a battle scene, and heavy high fantasy writers and readers are going to argue with me a little bit on this, but if you have a battle scene that's going for 75 pages, my opinion is it's a little too long to keep your readers at that high of attention place. So pay attention to that. And then as far as chapter length, this is where it's a little controversial. I do not subscribe to the idea of chapters should only be this long or have to be this long or any of that. I think that chapters should be exactly how long they need to be to achieve the proper pacing. So if you have a chapter that is 3 pages long and you wanted it 3 pages long because it's that snap feeling that you wanted for that character or that moment or that point in the story, I think that's perfect. And if you have a chapter that's 26 pages long afterwards because you have this beautiful slow building romantic scene, I'm okay with that. Now, that doesn't mean that if you did that and you sent it to me that I, as like an author coach, wouldn't be like, I think this chapter would probably be stronger if we broke it right here, right? Because that is still a thing that could happen. But yeah, I think people get really distracted by, well, this has to be 7 pages. This has to be 7 pages, or this has to be, 8,000 words or whatever. And I think the beats and the pacing and the timing is so much more critical than if you have exactly the correct word count on your chapters. Okay.
You ready for the next one?
Yes.
Okay.
Go for it.
So Jane says, from the examples you've shown, it looks like a lot of the beats, microbeats, are created by switching between traditional sentences and fragmented sentences. Am I understanding that right?
That's part of it for sure. Yeah. So the fragmented sentences are one tool. Mm-hmm. But there's also things like vocabulary choice. There's also things like traditional sentences, and kind of a big, vague term, because you're also going to employ like really extra long sentences, right? With like really large words. And then you've got the regular ones that are going to be just your traditional pacing. So if you paid attention to the way I was metronoming out the Lord of the Rings clip, you had the really fast, you had the super slow, and then you just had your clicking along. So in my mind, and this might not be what you meant, but traditional sentence would be more of that click, right? And then, yeah, making it longer or shorter, fragmenting, all of that. Yes.
I feel like at some point, I remember you last time I watched this, even talking about paragraph length and how to break up your paragraphs, and how that affects pacing. And I know because I write for MG, so I'm writing for a younger audience, I do tend to like really short paragraphs, but then every once in a while, I throw in a really long one because it slows it down. And I make sure that everything that's in that paragraph, that's like you said, the big red arrow, stop and read this. This is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I love varying paragraph lengths. I love those like fragmented sentences on their own lines. I love breaking a paragraph right where it just acts like it adds just this lean in, right? Like it in the same way that we get those lean in feels in regular conversation. It's a brilliant tool. I love paragraph length.
Yeah. So I don't see any more questions in our chat. I think, we've done a great job covering a ton of ground today. So thank you for coming and doing this. The tech worked great, by the way. Here we were all nervous and jerky, but it came good for us.
We got it. Yay.
Yeah. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Devri, for joining us as well. Devri, you hang on. We'll wave goodbye to the folks at home. And everybody else, we'll see you next week, where I believe Doug has a class going on in the premium space about editors and editing, which is actually something I want to have Devri come back and talk about too. At some point, you do another great class about how to work with an editor, because it is a skill for sure that you have to learn and put in your writer's toolbox. But Doug is teaching a class on editors when you need them next week. We also have our writing sprints. So everyone have a great weekend, TGIF, and we'll see you on the flip.
Thanks, everyone.